And good evening, everyone. This is a meeting of the Greenwich Planning and Zoning Commission being held virtually per the governor's executive orders. Before we begin, we have many announcements and postponements, mostly postponements. Number 5, 97 East Elm Street for a final site plan and special permit at that address. Number 6, 99 East Elm Street for a final site plan and special permit at that address. Terry Tatar at 0 Oak Street for a final coastal and special permit. Shirley and Hoakai Wen for a final coastal site plan and special permit at 2 Vista Drive. In addition, this evening, Mr. Andy Fox will be absent and Mr. Peter Lowe will be seated for him. Wait, I'm not seeing Dave. What happened to Dave?
He's there. He's just, his video isn't on.
I'm not even seeing his video.
No, neither is video nor is microphone on.
There he is. Hello, Dave. Okay. I just didn't want to not say you were being replaced if you needed to be replaced. So Mr. Lowe is seated for Mr. Fox. And our first item for the night is David Goldvug for a final site plan to install temporary storage to take up 1.5 parking spaces at 31 St. Roch. St. Roch? How do people say that, Nick?
Rocks, right?
It is Roch.
St. Roch Avenue.
It's Saint Rochelle, right?
Whomever is representing Mr. Gold, could you please put your hand up in the room?
That's underwater at the moment, Margarita, but the wine is still good.
What?
And Michelle.
Oh, Saint Rochelle.
Anybody in the audience in attendance to this meeting representing Mr. David Goldvig and the application at 31 St. Roch, please raise your virtual hand.
Okie doke. So let's move on, and if they come in, if we see somebody come in, we'll give them a chance after the next couple of applications. And we won't discuss it now, but one of the things, but I do have a couple of questions on it that could be addressed if they don't come, that we could get for the next meeting. The second item is Jason Safriat and Victoria Lika at 33 Willowmere Circle for a final coastal site plan and special permit. Would anybody on the commission like to begin on this item?
Engineering was an okay. It was a resubmit prior to zoning permit. Sewer seems to be okay with that. We got DEP comments on the dock. It seems that it's grandfathered because it's so old. We did get a landscape plan that showed some kind of a buffer. And we just got an email, I don't know, about 10 minutes, a little while ago.
Oh, this I have not seen.
Oh, we got an email 15 minutes ago
Yes.
from staff with an FAR plan.
Oh, my Lord. So this is the FAR plan that Jody wanted?
Yes, so we have it. It was just brought in. I have not taken a look at it.
Not going to happen.
Well, if I may speak, I'm not sure. We usually start out by introducing the applicant, but
Oh, hi, applicant.
you're on a roll, so go right ahead. But to answer your question, Jody's issue was not of substance, it was of form. He wanted to use the formatting in the example, and he sent along the formatting to Marissa that he wanted to see. So our architect, who's actually here, is Sandy Mahoney. She took the formatting he wanted to use and imported the FAR plans onto his formatting. There's no change in the floor area ratio. Obviously, he hasn't had a chance to look at it, but at the end of the day, obviously we have to be in FAR compliance. What Jody usually does is he looks at the plans after you've stamped them in any event to confirm, your staff stamps them to confirm the FAR is in accord with his directives. So there's not much more we can do at this particular time. We're confident they're right. He didn't object to the substance before it was the question of the formatting. So to me, assuming you're going in a direction which we hope you will of an approval this evening, you can just reinforce the comment to confirm that Jody has to be made happy. For some reason there's an issue, obviously we adjust, because at the end of the day, he's not going to approve or grant a zoning permit unless and until he has reviewed and approved the final stamp plans with the FAR calculations in accordance with his formatting.
Yeah, and you're saying that nothing that you did would change the calculations because you are within 4 feet of your maximum of
Yeah,
4252.
which is why there's a higher degree of scrutiny. I think it's under section 12B actually of the regulations. There
Yeah,
has to be a
within
certification by the
10%,
art. And that's
when
what
you're
he
within
wanted. He wanted a
10%.
certificate in the formatting of the certification he likes to see. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Nick, any comment on that?
Yeah, kind of stand in the middle of the fence here.
Don't do that.
Mr.
It's
Tessie-
really dangerous.
Yeah, Mr. Testie's, he's correct, actually. Well, Mr. Couture actually would look at the
And if it's with,
FAR again
Yep.
prior to him issuing his zoning permit for the construction, for the building permit itself. So no matter what, it'll get checked and actually it will need to be corrected. I think it's only maybe a procedural issue here with us that if we want to act on it, do we want to act on it with this hanging over our heads?
well, and there's another, let's talk about the other issue as well, and then we can resolve everything at one time. The other question that we went back and forth on, Mr. Tessie, and I did see that you heard us, was this issue about conservation's comments versus the race comments. And I think we wanted to have a better understanding of how this works, kind of how
Yes.
to address it.
I can
If you
answer.
would,
Shall I
yes,
answer? Yes. Phil Petropalo is here from Race.
yes, that would be great if we could.
Author, and appreciated all your comments. I did pass along Mr. Macri's comments, which would be appreciated. But Jill, I know you're on. Well, I hope you're on.
Pat, can you
Why don't
find Jill?
Raise your
and have-
hand, and you can go at it. With,
I think
the
I'm
expert.
not seeing her. Pat, did
Hey,
you? There she is.
Am I here?
Hi, Jill.
Hello, how are you?
Okay, so Jill, talk to us about the conservation comments versus your reply.
Sure. And just kind of, you want me to just go through,
For you saw what conservation raised. I'm just scrolling down to it because your reply incorporated that. You saw their points and then you answered whatever is easy for you. Maybe if you take it in the sequence of your letter and just elaborate if the commission has any more questions.
sure, yeah, that I think we can do. So the first comment was about the first comment is the proposed site redevelopment will follow the pool is tightly fitted between the residence and the edge of the seawall, encompassing an area of tidal wetlands, and that this location was concerned because of sea level
Right.
rise projections.
Okay, and you're saying you don't know why she believes that this area would be underwater.
Correct. Yeah, I think well, and also that the wetlands would be impacted by the pool, because I think on the residential development plan, it shows the area of flagged wetlands, which are all seaward of the wall, and the proposed development to the pool is landward of the wall. That plan also shows that the top of the wall varies from elevation 5.3 feet to 6.9 feet in elevation around the area where the proposed pool is. Again, that plan shows the elevation to be 6 feet. The typical high tide, mean high water at the site is 3.4 feet. So with the, I guess, Miss Mock had a projection of 2 feet of sea level rise. The Circa adaptation by James O'Donnell recommends a planning threshold of 20 inches of sea level rise. So either way though, with that mean high of 3.4 plus 2 feet, 5.4, still below the elevation of the wall 6 on a typical day.
I think her issue was that when there is a particularly high tide
Mhm.
and a storm, which we certainly have seen the combination, that this would not be the case. As you said just now, on a typical day, on a typical tide, what happens on an atypical tide?
Well, it depends on how high it is, and throughout the coastline, depending on the severity of the storm, we all saw with Sandy that, the waters can rise and overtop the seawall, and that would be a maintenance issue that the owner would have to deal with.
What if you get what is it called, that those big tides that that happen a couple of times a year, and
Like a
they
King
happen
tide
to
or
be
spring tide.
coupled with a storm? Would
Mhm.
you then get a problem of flooding? I'm just trying to get a sense, because I think we're arguing a little bit semantics here. You're saying on your average okie dokie time, you'd
Right.
be okay. And Alexandra's saying, and I think she makes the point later on a day when things combine, it isn't going to be so okay. That's really her point, and that's the concern she's trying to, on it, how often are you subject to risk here?
Right. And so right now at that elevation 6, I would say on any given year, there's about a 10% chance that the water is getting that high. As sea level rise occurs in the future, that probability will increase. But again, that 20 inches of sea level rise recommendation, that's based off of the midpoint of a number of curves. So it could be worse, it could be less, and that could be something that can be adapted for in the future, if need be. But for at current day, which is really the only thing we can talk definitively about, there's a 10% chance annually that wall would be.
Right. So actually, in a sense, we're looking at the wall, which is around 6, maybe 6.5.
Right.
The pool itself is up at 9.
Right. So yes, and pool is
So
much higher, so that would be closer to, and I don't have the exact numbers off the top of my head, but between a 4% annually and a 2% annually, most
Right.
likely.
Something like
Well-
a significant 100-year storm.
Yeah,
Okay.
so 100% storm would have a 1% annual chance of occurrence. So it'd be somewhere,
Right.
But the real issue is also, there's a second point she raises, which you have a drainage structure that would then be subject to flooding, which, as you say, at a 10% probability of flooding, not helpful for a drainage structure, right?
I can't really speak to the drainage structure. If maybe the site engineer is on and they want to.
He should be, Len DeAndrea should be on,
Oh,
Yeah.
so he can respond to the engineering.
okay. So, because it's twofold, and I guess that brings us right back to the conservation comments, because they raise both issues.
Mhm.
So, Len, Mr. DeAndrea?
Unmute our video. I think you all can see me.
Yes, hi.
Sure, we expect things in these coastal environments when you have those kind of storms where you could reach wave heights of 16 in the VE or 15 in the AE zone to be inundated. But that's not their purpose. Their purpose is to treat the regular storms that happen more frequently that may or may not be associated with these higher storm tides. It doesn't destroy their capability of functioning after the storm. It's like anything else. If the storm tide is such that there's some damage caused to the rear yards, which happens quite often, it gets repaired. Every 5 years, these systems have to be inspected too and report back to engineering. So they're going to function the way they are intended to function for most of those storms that occur. And in those rare occasions when we do get these extreme high tides and coastal flooding, they will flood and drain and then function again.
But Mr. DeAndrea, Ms. Mock says that when she was at the site on September 16th, that high tide had reached the top of the wall. Now, it was September 16th of 2020 at 11:50 a.m. a particularly salient time.
That's close to the autumnal equinox. Spring tide and the autumnal equinox, you have these extraordinarily high tides.
So this would be a twice a year event, you're figuring, Mr. Hardman, where you would flood this, you could potentially flood this this unit.
Well, let me make a comment on that. That's certainly we have those extreme tides, and the 5.5 is one of those elevations we use to separate jurisdiction from the Connecticut DEP. But the rain garden that we have on the north side, for instance, its lowest elevation of the rain garden is 9.1. And to put that into perspective, the Stillwater elevation of Sandy was 10. So these systems that we're using to pre-treat, which have been reviewed and approved by Connecticut DEP, are appropriate and will do their job. Yes, when you have storm surges, they may become inundated, but that's not our concern at that point.
I believe, but I'm sorry, Mr. DeAndrea, I'm a little confused, so don't lose me here.
Okay.
You said a storm surge. I don't believe that we're talking about a storm surge on the 16th of September.
No, you were not. And so that's my point is all the predicted tides, which are not affected by storm tides, these systems are above that. So those predicted tides range up to as high as, say, 5 relative to this datum, 5.5, maybe a little higher than that, 5.8. But our systems are several feet above that.
So let me ask you the question a different way to just simplify this line of inquiry. Is there a way that you could bulletproof this a little bit? Is there another location for that unit that's near the swimming pool that you could that you might be able to accommodate to give it better utility?
It's a good question. We battle between the Connecticut DEP and the local drainage manual. If we were to satisfy only the Connecticut DEP, you would not see this. They would prefer us to show things as overland flow. And we have, in this case, we have a combination. So to be very specific to your question, we start with pre-treatments in the driveway itself.
Right.
And then we work around our way. But the way this drainage manual works is you have to, it's like a domino, you have to keep going down the chain, and each section that you propose, you have to treat. Now, there's been a lot of discussions between Scott and myself even on why are we doing these kind of treatments for a pool? And there may be something that comes down a little bit later on that talks specifically about the pools. If I could remove the pool, I could remove that rain garden to the north side. So that's what we're playing with. And again, when you think about what we're doing this not to the benefit of storm surges, but to the benefit of your typical rainstorm events.
So could we leave this at that? Could we ask you to continue to work with Mr. Marucci, if we were to approve this, to find a compromise that better suits what DEEP looks for? Because I think our biggest issue here is to protect residents. The issue here is to protect residents from sea level rise. And that, I think, in this type of instance, it is the higher priority. And could we just ask that you work with Scott to find a solution that addresses some of these concerns a little bit better. And
You're looking at water going in two different directions then. You're looking at
Right.
water
stormwater as
that's
well as,
stormwater
correct,
on the site
correct.
being recharged to the ground, and then flooding inundation from the sound.
But here's the
And
issue. I'm sorry, Nick.
the split there is this: you're getting rid of in the course of 365 days, you're getting rid of water, every day from the land side, and then you're getting maybe 10 days of sea storms. Mr. DeAndre, just a quick question: based on the soils analysis for the site, was there any other location to put any one of the Cultec systems?
Oh, that, let's step back. Our first revision had several infiltration systems. And the reason is the soils here are really gravelly. It's one of those lucky locations where you go, oh, fantastic. We have really well gravelly soils, drains very well. But there's another thing that we have to deal with, and that is when we're on a direct fronting coastal property, we're not allowed the same luxury as we were if this was just flipped over on the other side of the street. He rejected the initial infiltration, saying, no, I'm not going to let you do that treatment train because you're a coastal fronting property. So going back to that one rain garden that we have on the north side, which is really the one in question, we didn't have it initially. Then we had it between the pool and that little inlet. And that wasn't a great location for a number of reasons. So we slid it around the corner, put it on the north side, and slid it back. If you're asking me as an engineer, do we need this? And I'm telling you no, because we have this additional lawn area for treatment in gravelly soils. That'd be great, but we have to work to the drainage manual. And I would certainly be happy to have another dialogue with Scott to see if there's anything else we could
Because
do
if
this time
you
we're satisfied.
if I was to give you one of the reasons that P&Z explains its existence, is that we take two different sets of demands and try to find a balance between them. So if DPW wants something and conservation wants something, we're trying to find a way of getting a better balance for the resident and the town. So I think that's the best, unless somebody disagrees, that would be the best way to do it, to just that we encourage DPW that if it's possible to have flexibility to better accommodate that flood scenario, because Nick put it very well. You have two sources, you have the storm source and you have the tidal source, and you are working to accommodate the storm source, but at a trade-off for the tidal.
So to your point, you're right. We are raising the dwellings because of our storm surges, our 100-year events. And we're also being pushed by Connecticut DEP, and for whatever their reasons may be, to keep the grade around these structures lower. They don't like walls, they don't like us raising. So now you see our pool pushed down, our dwelling pushed up. We have good soils. We put a lot of the drainage in the front yard. And I will talk to Scott. What we're dealing with that rain garden is the patio between the dwelling and the pool itself. And if you just think about that, there really isn't a pollution concern from that, but it's all part of the drainage manual, and we're forced to treat it in this way. But I'll work with Scott and see if we can eliminate that for something else or relocate it someplace else.
It's very clear, Mr. DeAndre, it's very clear to us why DEEP is uncomfortable with the walls and the grading and all that. They don't like changing the tidal flow. They don't like anything that impacts the free tidal flow, because it now differentially affects other properties. I mean, we get that. DEEP has been very clear to us about that when we've probed with why they're uncomfortable with something. But yeah, I think that's the only thing we can do, because you're caught, as I'm hearing it, it's an inadequate way to put it. You're caught between a rock and a hard place, but you're really caught between a wet place and a wet place, but okay.
Can I ask a question just for perspective? I wanted, if you raise the pool a foot.
You raise the whole, best, go ahead.
Does that alleviate the problem with DEEP?
No, we're more concerned about the drainage structures. In fact, it's the drainage structure that fills up first. So you have a drainage structure that stops working.
Am I wrong? I didn't think We talking about deep or are we talking about the conservation director's office?
Well, I guess. the
Everybody.
conservation-
We're
Well,
talking,
Deep didn't make any adverse comments, to my
no, they
knowledge.
did not. They did
No,
not.
but- well, I just want to be clear.
Let
I
me
was
make it
concerned
clear
I
on
missed
this part.
something.
Yeah, but let me make it clear on this part. The raising the thing, that's not the issue. So right now, just looking at the site plan, our pool area is 9.8. Our pool itself is nestled in the same thing. It's around 9.4 as it pitches a bit. The grade is 9 north and south of that, and then it drops down 8.76 down to the seawall. So there's really no other place we could take care of the drainage other than at the elevation we have it. And that's my point is we have the bottom of that little, it's a very short little, what do you call it, rain garden at 9.1. On the south side of the pool, the natural grade of the ground is 9. So we've kept it in the natural grade and it works well with the environment. It's going to do its job. It's just that if you get an elevation that exceeds 10, you will inundate that rain garden for a period of time for that tide cycle. And then these soils are so great underneath, it will drain out. If we don't have another high tide, we're back to normal. So I can talk to Scott, but I'm not sure if there's a better place to put it than.
You may
it was
not,
going-
all we can do is ask you, Mr. DeAndrea. We realize there may not be a better, but we are not the experts. All we can do is say, hey, there's 2 points of view. Can we find a better way of addressing this? If Scott says no, he says no.
I absolutely will do that for you.
Does anybody else on the commission have questions on this application or comments?
What would you like to do about the FAR issue?
Well, I thought we would first see if we've got any public comment and then we'll come back and talk about these two issues. How does that?
Okay, fine.
Okay, do I have any public comment on this application? No, okay. So now the FAR issue, what would you like to do, folks?
You're asking me?
No, I know what you want to do, Mr. Tessie.
No, I'm just taking
Let me think.
seriously, I'm just taking a practical approach about it. At the end of the day, as Mr. McAree had mentioned, Mr. Couture has got to review the plans. I mean, the worst, which I believe will never happen. The worst case is if they're off a little bit, there'll be a modest adjustment that you really don't get involved in the architecture in these things. So, but anyway, I'll keep my mouth shut. I did a good job so far.
I think it's
but
actually-
if you want to
it's
come
a
on the commission, I'm sure the Selectmen's Committee will consider you.
Someday.
Not enough experience.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. McRae.
I think it comes down to a procedure issue of us acting on this with something that actually has not been resolved or a zoning issue that hasn't been resolved. Understanding, yes, Mr. Couture and his office will actually verify it prior to them issuing the zoning permit for building permit. But are we okay with saying we'll let this one slide kind of thing and see what happens?
Well, so let's do an alternate scenario. When you're within 10% of the allowed FAR, Jody has to double check it anyway.
He does it all
So,
the time anyway.
He does it. He has to check it, but he has to, by regulation, he has to verify that the calculations are correct when when they're within 10%. So no matter what, when we're at this threshold, he's got to check it. Now, all you can do is that it would return to us if it exceeds FAR.
Yeah, I think there it is. Would
Katie?
it come back?
Well,
Would it come back to us?
actually, if it exceeded FAR, it would need a revision.
Right,
because-
that's what I'm saying. So it has to come back to us. So, that's what.
It doesn't have to come back to
Yeah,
you.
this is the age-old question. You could punt everything and just say, go figure everything out, and you're not going
We
to get.
could do that too.
So it's so I think the better way to look at it is, if what would a full reworking of the plan be required, or would it be just a small revision needed? And I think, so in this particular instance, if it was over, I mean, Mr. Tessie, would it be a complete reworking of the site plan, or would it just be a minor lopping off of the mudroom or something?
That's what it would be. It would be minor. I mean, you've done things like this many times in the past. I think it's a matter of saying, subject to his verification, and if he comes up with a major problem, then he consults with staff and you make a decision. but I can't believe we're gonna get there. This is a lot of time's been spent on this. We consulted with Jody actually along the way when we had to do the averaging of the first floor. So he's seen these plans in various formats along the way and has signed off on it. But his final plan, unfortunately, the architects had it in a little bit different format that he likes to have it when you get to this 10% rule. And there has to be a certification by the architects. They spent time going over it again today. I understand, but if this were a major point and it were a substantive point as opposed to a procedural point, you know, perhaps it would be major. But he didn't state that he had concern about the calculations. He specifically referred to the detail, the formatting, and he sent the format. I think, Pat, you know that, it may have been on email. What he did, he said, put it in this format and sent the format with his email that he wanted it put on.
Yeah, Mr. Macri, I would say that this is a organization of the information issue and not that the application can't meet the zoning requirements. I think it was the comment from the zoning enforcement officer was, I require this format, please organize it in that way. And the applicant has done that. Granted, it was, you know, between 3 and 5 o'clock tonight, but that's, you know, I don't think it's a issue of compliance as much as it is a request that for him to analyze that he needs it in this order.
Okay. Understanding that, then we can, I guess we can act on this. We've got the issues that about our drainage, and we've got issues about the FAR. So if anybody else has any other thoughts. Silence.
No, I don't have any other thoughts. I think that that addresses the key issue. We know that the dock can be kept. And the only other, I think the only other thing is that since we have not yet approved the regulation on the buffer and the coastal planting, that we add to anything we decide some language that staff will review the planting plan for coastal habitat consistency type of thing, however you want to word it. Her comments are about restoring coastal habitat to the extent possible. It's comment 2.
Okay.
And it's the site should account for the environmental changes the coastal area is being exposed to. That's comment 2 from her. Because we don't have the regulation in place yet, I think we just asked that it be addressed by staff with the applicant. So those things. So it's interesting on these coastal applications, we're getting more and more focused on the environmental issues. It's interesting. Every time they come in, that's where we end up going. So is the commission agreeable to closing this item? We don't seem to have any public comment on it.
Yes, close.
Let me just give one more shot. Anybody from the public wish to comment on 33 Willowmere, please raise your virtual hand. Okay, we don't have any. So Nick, you're okay with closing? Peter Lowe?
Okay.
Peter Levy?
Okay.
Dave Hardman?
Yes.
And myself. Okay, then, so we would entertain a motion, Mr. McRae, if you would make it.
Okay. 33 Willow Circle, application PLPZ 2020 225, final coastal site plan in the R20 zone. Applicant is requesting approval of a final coastal site plan application to construct a new single-family residence with associated terraces, driveway, swimming pool, patios, exterior mechanical systems, and stormwater management system in the AE 15 and VE 16 flood zones. The commission finds that engineering issued comments dated 10/9/20 indicating resubmittal prior to issuance of a zoning permit. Wetlands, inland wetlands, watercourses, received a permit needs questionnaire sign off from the Wetlands Agency on 6/19/20. Conservation issued comments on 9/16/20 with concerns about the pool location and fill in the VE zone. Zoning issued comments on 9/17 requesting submittal of detailed floor plans for review. Sewer division comments dated 9/16/20 indicating there are no issues to be addressed during P and Z phase. And DEP issued comments 8/17 dating stating no comments concerned about the proposed development, but indicated permitting for the dock needed to be resolved. Therefore, motion to approve the site plan with noting the following. DEP in a memo to the applicant dated 9/21/20 indicates the dock is grandfathered and does not need to be removed and does not need to be permitted retroactively. A memo to B&Z staff dated 9/25/20 from Race Engineering satisfactorily addressed all of the issues Conservation Commission raised. A landscape plan and specifications by Janice Parker Landscape Architects dated 9/30/20 have been submitted indicating coastal plantings and screening as required by ZEO office. Detailed drawings dated 8/30/20 by Crisp Architects was submitted and found acceptable. Let's see. The staff and conservation should look at or review the landscape plan as provided for any improvements or additions. Applicant shall meet again with DPW engineering to see if there's any more balance to be had in the stormwater management system, specifically the structures that attend to the pool. Applicant shall, prior to permit, submit revised FAR drawings to the ZEO for review for compliance with the building zone regulations, and the applicant to address any other outstanding staff or interdepartment issues. Would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, and the landscaping, just that the site design should account for environmental changes. The landscape plan should incorporate changes to the coastal area and be supportive of the tidal marshes and coastal habitats is the goal. You said anything we want to add? I'm just elaborating.
Yeah.
Very concerned about that. Do I have a second on this?
Second.
Mr. Levy has seconded. I'll take a vote. Mr. Lowe? Mr. Lowe?
Yes, sorry.
Mr. McRae?
Aye.
Mr. Levy?
Aye.
Mr. Hardman?
Aye.
And Albin is also aye. Thank you very much, everybody. With that, we're going to return to the first application, Mr. David Goldvug, for a final site plan to install temporary storage. Pat, you said Mr. Goldvug or his representative is here now?
He is, Madam Chair. I just brought him into the room.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, Miss Pietropaulo's gone. I was going to thank her, but she disappeared. Hello, Mr. Goldvug.
Hello, everybody.
We got some additional information from you today. If perhaps you could elaborate, you
Sure.
are planning on improving your current storage building, and that's why you want to use the temporary, you want to use the unit on your lot. When will you be beginning this improvement to your storage building?
I have to talk to architect. I mean, the problem is that the building was built very long time ago. I know for sure I have to change the roof, but you know, when you start opening all that old stuff, definitely a lot of stuff will come up, need to be replaced. So it's very hard to say. But I'm trying to do it as soon as possible. That's my goal.
Now, you don't have I did not drive by the site. Do you have the storage pod there now?
Yes, I have. I have a small building around 350 square feet.
No, you have the storage unit is already on your property?
I have a like a shed. What I try to do, I try to get.
Okay, but did you already get that storage unit that you want to put on your property?
No,
The storage container.
no, no,
The
no,
container?
no, no.
Okay,
no.
so Katie and Pat, let me ask you this. If the commission was to, could the commission do this for administrative approval such that, oops, everybody just changed, such that when Mr. Goldvug has a permit, has submitted a building permit and has detailed the work that he needs to do here, and we know the scope of the work and how long it will take, then you would allow him to put the pod on site, to put the storage unit on site, and you would have an estimate of how long it would take to have it on site. Because Mr. Goldvug, what's troubling me is a roof takes a week.
Right.
So if that ends up being all you need to do, you don't even need the storage unit.
Well, no, the problem is, that what I have right now is filled up with a lot of paper, a lot of different materials, a lot of stuff, a lot of small machinery, which I use not every day, but almost every day. So my problem is I need to clean up all of that first before I want to start doing anything. That's why I'm asking to put that temporary storage on my property.
Mr. Goldvug, how long do you anticipate the sea crate to be there?
I probably 6 months. I mean, that's much. And then it's the biggest, longest time. But right now it's kind of difficult to say because not a lot of people work full capacity. It's kind of hard to find constructors who can come to me to do my small job. That's what one of the problem with. But before I do anything, before somebody come to me and tell me, okay, how much is that? This, how much that? I have to clean up all of that. So because they can't talk to me, someplace they can't get to the walls, everything filled up. That's why I ask you, please give me that permit to get that storage first. And
So have you started any of the processes with the building department? Because this is a storage facility that you need to do some upgrades to, starting with the roof. But as you said, once you open the roof, there might be other things or whatever. So how much exploratory work have you done at this point? None? I mean, all you know is the roof.
No, I know. I repair that roof myself 3 times. It's leaking. That's why I know so far.
Okay, so Mr. Goldvug, go ahead, Katie.
I was just going to say, to answer your question though, yeah, I mean, you could always have it be that, prior to, exactly like you said, that he could go and get the building permit. Once he has the building permit, then we could either, once he started that process, we could either do a sign off per your approval. Or, I mean, one thing that's just a little concerning is, making sure that you don't end up rebuilding this thing in place, because one thing ends up being, leading to another, et cetera. And it could be years.
Mrs. DeLuca, I have a kind of a solution. I've been thought about this actually, because it's tied to 2 things. It's a temporary storage container being put on for building renovation. So if we grant a specific time, how many days, whatever it is, from a decision letter, and then it has to be removed in that amount of time, or the issuance of a CO on the renovation. Because I think there's 2 different things, is that we have a container on the site that's tied to a project. We anticipate the project not to go that fast. So if we allow a certain amount of times, if Mr. Goldvug would have to actually get that project finished in a certain amount of days, because at the end of that certain amount of days, he's got to do something with the container. If he hasn't finished his project by then, he's going to be in kind of an odd location or an odd issue. So
I mean, the other thing that's a little troubling is that this is in the R6 zone, right?
Exactly. And I think that's the thing is that we have it's a container, a very large container in an R6 zone.
We
Um,
hate,
I
Mr.
was more,
Goldvug, we really don't like these, you know that, right? You know,
no,
I
I'm
mean,
not so much
we-
concerned,
Um,
to be honest with you.
I have a couple of questions, if I may.
yeah,
First of all, I have a fence all around my parking lot, which is not see-through.
okay, that's good.
That was done actually when I did renovation of the building, when I bought it, because of the town required to do that. So I changed all that. So the container will stay in the corner of my parking lot. It probably will be not higher than fence itself, or maybe like half a feet top. I don't see if anyone will see that at all, because it stay right in the deepest corner on the left side. I have a neighbor. He has like a outside storage facility. There's no house there, and another house behind it, but there's no windows. I mean, I didn't see anyone will see that at all. That's one thing. Another things, I'm sorry, I don't know, but if I need to repair the shed I have to go to town to get permit to that. I'm not renovation. I'm not making bigger or higher or anything. I just repair old building. Do I
We-
have to come to you and get permit? for
Yes,
that?
Yes.
yes.
Really? Well, I don't know about that, but okay, well, I'll take it.
Well, it's a building, it's construction.
It's repairing, it's not construction.
Well,
but you're-
permit's a loaded question though, Madam Chair. I mean, it would need a building permit, if you're replacing roof or siding or windows, that all requires building permit. Whether it comes to this commission is, I guess, dependent upon the scope of the work.
I mean, the other thing you got to think of, Mr. Govug, is this is legally non-conforming in the R6 zone. So you're going to want to protect your non-conforming rights. So let's just say that this thing accidentally falls down. You want to have it. You want to be able to say that everything, that you're not intending to demolish this, etc. I mean, you've got to protect your rights here.
No, I don't. No, definitely don't want to demolish because I need that.
Right. So that's why I'm saying, so it's in your best interest to make sure you have the whole darn thing documented.
Well, listen, I didn't say that. I'm not going to do that without
No,
documents.
I understand.
I just
but
don't know that. I said I don't know that I need to get a permit. So that's a
Yeah.
different story. So I'll definitely will take some steps to get a permit. But again, that will take a long time. But again, is it possible to give me a permit to put the container? And I will start that process parallel with removing and get some estimates from the general contractors. Is that something we can do?
I'm just looking at Google Earth of the
Yeah,
site.
I'm doing the same thing.
So I'm looking at so you have in the back corner of your site, that's a shed?
On the right side, if you look.
With like a red roof, kind
On the right side, yes, that's what.
Yeah. Oh,
two-car
okay.
garage,
Yeah, we
Okay.
call it garage. It probably was garage before.
right? A two-car garage.
Yeah,
And that's what you're gonna repair?
yes.
Okay. Anybody got any great ideas here?
Yeah, I think the biggest issue for us is that a storage container is put on the site, and we would like to have this storage container to be removed as it's a temporary issue.
Yes.
So what I'm thinking is if Mr. Govug is actually requesting a specific number of days, okay, we say
Yeah.
it's that many days from the issuance of our decision,
Yep.
and then upon the issuance of the renovation CO, or that amount of days comes first, then a container
Okay.
container's got to be removed.
All right. Okay. So that
or
before,
come back to the question.
so before we go to that,
See, Mrs. DeLuca,
Yeah.
it's come back now, because I think we'll get into an issue. I think even going forward, if we take a look at any more of these, it's a temporary issue. I'd love to make sure that it's a temporary issue.
I understand your point, but I mean, practically speaking, tons of different things could happen.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the reason this is concern is obviously this is a non-conforming use, number one. Number two, you're going to be using up parking spaces or using the parking lot in a way that, is not for parking. So you're going to be putting even more clutter.
Pressure on the parking in the neighborhood that's already stressed.
Yeah, so that's, that's why it's of issue to the commission. So you want to make sure that the site can function properly for the most amount of time. Now, I understand what you're saying, that, you've got to protect the stuff that you're storing there. And so I understand where you're going with this, and I understand that, things can, other things can.
Let's try another tack first, just another tack. Mr. Goldfug, you have 90 days anyway, but you think you're going to want to go longer. What about if we tell Ms. DeLuca and Mr. Leroux that at the end of 90 days, they review your situation and they see if you've gotten all the permits for what you need to do and what you need to do, and they give you an extension not to exceed X amount of time.
Okay, so
Does that work for you, Katie
from
and
my
Pat?
understanding, so you give me permission to put that storage now in the start
So-
process to get permits.
Right.
Sure.
And then he
So-
gets
so-
permits, so he gets the 90 days. At the end of the 90 days, he's got to come in and tell you how much longer he needs it for.
I think we just need to be practical here. Let's just say, as an example, that this building is pre-1945. He goes in, all of a sudden there's a stay. We got to be realistic about helping, about when the storage unit is going on the property relative to when he can get the building permit. I mean, I really don't think it is in your best interest, since the building permit is for a longer period of time. I think it's in your best interest to get the storage unit on your property and start the 90 days after you get the building permit, so that you have as much time as so that you're not chewing up this 90 days waiting for building permits, etc.
Okay. I understand
Okay,
what you're saying,
Katie.
Katie.
See what I'm
Go.
saying, Nick?
Absolutely. I like that. Okay. So
And we handle that, as a sign off or something along those lines, if you wanted to put that into your decision.
that's what I'm thinking. And but you've got parameters within which to work. And then you can handle it as a sign off within those parameters. Does anybody want to jump in on this one? Everybody's like, okay. I know that's great, Pat, but no idea what you're saying.
I just think we need to state for the applicant what that timeline is going to be. So whatever the consensus is, if we could just say how long that is, so we have it here on the record, and then in the letter, obviously, it'll just, we have an idea of what that is.
Okay, Mr. Goldzug, you're saying 180 days, so that's actually 6 months?
Yeah.
So that'll get you to May. If you act now and actually put the container in, get everything out, have the building inspected and start your process. If the building's not that big, it would seem actually you can get the whole thing done in 6 months from permit to CO. I think that's actually kind of puts you on the into a time frame where you have a realistic beginning and an end. So you really kind of focus on getting this finished up and getting it done. Especially seeing as your business is paper based, you don't want any water or anything getting into that
Right.
into that garage. So
Right.
So is 180 days work for you?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, one more time to get me understanding. So I can get a container now and start process of the getting permits the same time.
At the same
Right.
time. Yes.
Okay.
Well, I think that's not in your best interest, if I may say. I think what's in your best interest is to get your building permit and then get the container. Because why are you have a very limited time that you can have this container. So I really think it's in your best interest to wait until you have your building permits before you start your clock for the container.
Katie's right. Because what happens is you don't have to start work the day after you get the permit. You can reorganize what's in your shed once you have the permit.
I
You
think
don't
the
have to
issue,
start work the next day.
I
So
think
it
the issue,
gives
he
you,
needs to get the stuff out of the
does.
garage.
He does. But he can do that once he's already got the permits going, because the permit is going to take you 3 or 4 weeks to get.
And you have a permit for a longer period of time, so.
And the permit stays open once you get it. So once you have the permit, get the storage set, calmly organize all your stuff, and then you'll have the most amount of time to use the shed for what you need that way. Katie's right. It makes a lot of sense. And she's trying to help you. Okay? Are you happy
Yeah.
with that? Because you don't look happy.
That's just for me, I was a bit surprised that if I need to do something small in my shed, I have to go to town to get permit. One of you said that my parking lot stress my neighborhood. How's that?
No, because we don't have enough parking in the neighborhood. So say everybody comes to your business one day and they don't find a place to park, they park on the street. And we do not have enough parking on the street in that neighborhood. So I don't know that your parking lot ever fills up.
It's never going to happen because what happened, I have 1 or 2 clients max the same time in my shop. I have 16 spots in my parking lot. So that's never happened, ever. It's just not possible.
Okay, so that's why we worry about this neighborhood a lot, because it's always tight for parking. But Katie's right. What she's giving you as a process is the best way to go. It's the best way to go for you.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
She's trying to make it easier for you.
No, I understand.
So let me just take a time out. Does anybody in the public wish to comment on this application? No. Okay. So anybody have any additional thoughts to add?
I just want to make sure I'm clear on how we're going to do
Okay,
this.
wait till Katie comes back because she threw in a lot. I want to make sure they're both there. So, but I think the bottom line is it's after he's gotten the permit, then he gets this pod, then he organizes his stuff as he needs, and then he has the first 90 days that we give him, and then no more than, what did Katie say, another 180, was it?
Yes.
Okay, that's the basic, but I just have Katie hear you make the resolution.
So it's 90 days and then 180 days?
Whichever way the commission wants to do it. The max that is allowed without coming to us is 90 days.
Okay. And that clock starts the day he's issued the building?
No, we're going to start at the day it's the day that the unit arrives on site.
Okay, so it's 90 days plus 180 days.
Pat, well, I want to just make sure Katie's okay with that too.
I'm sorry. The 90 days. The first 90 days is what again? I'm not following now.
The day the unit arrives on site.
Is 90 days from now.
No, the day the unit is delivered.
So tomorrow could be the start of the 90-day clock.
The clock begins when the pod arrives on site.
Exactly.
Is what he's trying to say.
Right, but why is it not 180 days? I thought we were.
The normal clock is 90 days. Now, how big an extension we want to give is another 180 days, correct?
No,
Gotcha.
I think in total it was 180 days, 6 months.
So we give
in
a
total.
90-day extension. Great,
Right.
I'm good
90
with that
initial
too.
and 90 after.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just saying, we don't have to act. The commission doesn't have to opine on a 90-day because that's already allowed by the town. That could be addressed with the town planner.
We said that. It's the extension.
Right.
But we're saying he starts his 90-day clock on the day of delivery and he gets another 90 days.
Correct.
Okay, we good?
Makes sense.
And then we're suggesting to him, and I think we could put it in the decision letter, that he wait until he has received his permit.
Correct.
To do it. That also gives us a way of knowing when the unit's going to go on site. Nobody from the public, again, if anybody from the public wants to comment, please raise your virtual hand. The person that's on the phone, it's *9, Pat?
Correct. *9.
Okay. I don't think we're getting Katie back in time. 1, 2, 3, 4. Why am I missing? Oh, it's Yeski. Okay. Yeski has fallen out for some reason. Oh no, it's Levy's back.
Yep.
And Dennis is missing.
Right, but Dennis is not.
Don't worry about it.
Okay. Well, it's weird when the screen changes like that. Okay, sorry. All right. So if nobody has any further comment, let's close this matter and go for it. Anybody object to closing it?
Nope.
No,
Okey doke. No objections. Okay, let's go ahead then, Mr. McRae, if you would put a motion on the floor.
Okay, 3 St. Rox Avenue, application PLBZ 2022-45. Final site plan in the R6 zone. Applicant is requesting approval of final site plan to permit a 40 by 8 foot temporary storage container at an existing parking lot for to exceed the maximum of 90 days allowed per section 6-144. Commission finds that it's making the request to temporarily store material located in the existing garage on the site. The existing garage is to be renovated. Zoning issue comments 10-13-20 indicating endorsement of the zoning permit with a comment that the applicant should note the length of time the storage container will be in its location. Screening, it is noted that there's a solid 6-foot high vinyl fence providing screening along the north and west property line. Therefore, motion to approve the site plan with the following conditions. The container location shall meet the required side and rear yard setbacks for accessory structures. No utility shall be installed to the container. The container shall only be used for storage of materials removed from the garage. Okay, the container shall be removed from the site 180 days from when it's delivered to the site. That's on or about May 2nd, 2021, or upon issuance of the renovation CO, whichever comes first.
I have just wanted to add, I mean, should we say as per the governor's executive order, we're adding the 90 additional days?
No, it's not
No.
per the executive order. It's just our regs. Our regs stop at 90 days and then we can give an extension to some. So the way containers work is if people can have 90 days with staff approval. And then if they want more than that, it has to come to the commission. Because
Right,
containers have
but-
always, so it's not to do with the executive order. It's just how we would do it in normal times. Hard to believe that there's ever normal times, but yes, we would do
Okay,
it.
it's just that I'm just trying to understand why it says that, you know, what this means on our agenda then. where it actually-
On our agenda, it's just that whenever we can decide, we have a 90-day extension to make decisions.
Oh, got it.
Not for the container, but any decision we make has a 90-day extension on it under the executive order. I think that is going to expire in November. That one I'm pretty sure is going to go away.
Okay.
All right, Nick, were you good?
If everybody's good with that statement, let me read it again. The container shall be removed from the site 180 days from when it's delivered to the site. That's on or about May 2nd, 2021, or upon issuance of the renovation CO, whichever comes first. Okay, the reason why I wrote that is that you have a time limit of 180 days or the CO. One may expire before the other.
Yep.
Okay. And Mr. LaRoe, if this is beyond this is beyond what I should be saying, let me know.
No, I think that's
wait.
fine. If it goes longer than this because of construction issues or whatever, then the applicant will have to
Come back.
reconvene with you guys, and that's
Yeah.
as long as it's understood.
Okay. Now, Mr. LaRoe, these next two sentences, staff shall notice the applicant of removal of the container 1 week prior to approval time expiring. And the zoning inspector shall verify removal of the container. Is that okay with you guys?
Explain that first sentence again. I'm sorry, Nick, I'm not following.
So we send notes, we send a notice to Mr. Godbud a week before the container, that 180 days is up.
Oh,
And then one of these
right.
zoning inspectors goes out.
So we let him know. Got you.
Yeah, let him know it's going to expire. And then one of the zoning inspectors goes out to check that it's gone. Does that work for you?
That's fine.
Okay. And the applicant to address any outstanding staff or interdepartmental issues.
Okie dokie. Do I have a second for that motion?
Second,
That was Mr. Levy?
yes.
Okie doke. All in favor, and I'll take a voice vote. Mr. Hardman,
Aye.
Mr. Lowe,
Yes,
Mr. Levy,
I,
Mr. McRae,
Aye.
and Albin is also aye. And with that, thank you very much, Mr. Goldvug. And with that, we'll move on to our next agenda item, which is at 1549 East Putnam Avenue LLC for a final site plan to improve a portion of the driveway, parking spaces, landscaping, and drainage structures at 1549 East Putnam. Is the applicant here, Mr. Leroux?
I believe it is Mr. Bristol, but correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, it is Mr. Bristol,
Oh, and Granoff, Mr. Zambell is also on
but
the
I'm
application.
not seeing Mr. Bristol. Did he just?
Mr. Bristol, it's Mr. Tessie,
Oh, okay. Mr. Bristol did the paperwork.
lurking in the background.
Now I
We
know
gave him the night off.
you reproached me for not letting you talk first in the beginning,
Oh,
and
no, I thought you were good.
I'm
That's a new way of doing it.
gonna jump in again.
Oh, good. I like this new procedure.
No, it's not what we normally do. I was just
Personally.
not, but just to make clear for anybody who's, oh, Mr. Bristol is here now, Mr. Tessie.
Okay, well, you can watch.
Okay, so just to make clear to anybody who's interested in this application, and a reminder to the commission, the building for this application is not in Greenwich at this point in time, nor is the parking in the rear. What affects us is the front of the building, the facade potentially, the parking in the front, and the actual driveway access. That is all that we are involved in. The remainder, the actual structure of the building is in Stamford. So our comments must be focused on what is within Greenwich property. In addition, before Mr. Tessie begins, it is worth reminding everyone that for Stamford, this is not reviewed by either their planning and zoning commission nor their planning and zoning staff, correct, Katie? This is an as of right use in Stamford.
I think it went before their ZBA.
It went before their ZBA because it required a variance, but
Mhm.
this is in their light manufacturing zone and it is an as of right use and is not being reviewed by their commission. I'm sure there's people who wish that the whole thing was in Stamford, but it isn't. So, but just so everybody knows that those are two parameters to consider the whole time. Okay, now, Mr. Tessie, if you would like to go forward.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We do have in attendance our development team includes again Mr. DeAndrea, Len DeAndrea.
Not seeing Mr. DeAndrea.
No?
Oh, there he is. Okay, got him. Do you want to bring him up
Okay.
or do you want to wait?
Asking me?
Oh, no, he's already there. Hello,
There
Mr.
he is. He's
DeAndrea.
he's
Okay.
appeared. We also have our landscape architect and architectural team in attendance, but a couple of things. Insofar as the issue of the variance on the Stanford side, I spoke to council about that. Bill Hennessy, who did the work there, and the variance actually is not being utilized. That was in relation to the prior plan, which actually you discussed yesterday, and I think put up on the screen. And they eliminated, it was an issue of a east side yard, and that is no longer the case. So it's actually not subject to the wow, okay, where's everybody? All right. So in actuality, the new building does not require any variance and it is as of right. Similar to Greenwich, it's reviewed by the zoning enforcement officer. So it was reviewed. It was the zoning enforcement officer who confirmed that it's an as of right development. No need from the planning of any decision to be made by their planning and zoning commission. Where there was some question about the landscape plan, that's actually here. This is the PowerPoint that we've provided to Pat. to put up for you all. We have actually made application to the Architecture Review Committee. That application is pending. I believe will be heard at the November meeting. That application relates particularly to the site. It would affect lighting, obviously, the extent that there's lighting, and then also the planting area that is within the town of Greenwich. Insofar as the state process is concerned,
Yeah, would you clarify that, please?
Len, yeah, I am, by turning it over to Mr. DeAndrea again. Mr. DeAndrea has filed the application with the state. He can speak to the questions that you raised during your staff briefing yesterday, both in terms of how it came to pass that we have the two driveways, one in Greenwich and then that little circle area in front, and also any issue regarding the planting of that area in front that Mr. DeAndrea stated would have to be grass. And he can, again, I'll turn it over to Len. He's seems to be on a roll tonight. So Len, why don't you take over and just start out with your process with the state right now?
Right. So it's, it's bad enough we're straddling the town line and we're dealing with Stamford and Greenwich, but in addition to that, it's a state highway. And so we've sent plans up to that highway division for this area. They reviewed it. They've come back with a couple of comments on the driveway entrances themselves. Not that we're changing this from one big long curb cut. They like that idea, but more because we're want to make sure that we have the proper details, just like Scott Marucci had also commented on the proper concrete details for this entrance. Other than that, the drainage system itself, we're doing it to the town of Greenwich standards, but we're tying into the state system. Therefore, the state will have the final say as well. And their policy is don't increase the peak rate of discharge, and we're usually pretty happy. The little island in there, we don't want to obstruct any sight lines, so we don't want to plant it with high bushes. Most likely it'll be some sort of gravel or lawn that will infiltrate, but it's not the place for a rain garden, certainly not the place for a rain garden because of its location right along the edge of pavement. And it just doesn't serve a purpose, nor is it large enough, let alone be inundated with salts and sands in the winter months. There is another area that will be landscaped, and that's when you drive in on the left side, there's a low retaining wall that will lift and level, and that will be a great place to landscape as shown on the plan that's presented up there right now. So we're not, the other thing, just to clarify, we're not getting a permit from the state at this point. We are getting review comments so that when the contractor goes to do the work, should everything be approved, he will have the plans that have been previously reviewed and approved, and then that contractor will pull the actual state permit to do the work.
Okay.
And that also Len did provide a response to Scott Marucci's initial memo to the commission. And I think it was been disseminated, right, to Pat, right, Pat? To the
Yes, Mr.
commission
Tessie,
that-
the commission has Mr. Marucci's most recent comments, which note that he has no further comments for the commission to consider under the site plan application, and that there are some things that can be addressed prior to permit.
Right,
Okay.
so I didn't know if they wanted to ask Len what exactly, he responded to that's necessary, but I just wanted to put that on the table. That's all.
John, if I may, I should comment one more time, or a little bit more on this circular driveway. This was actually a suggestion by the architect, and it's a good one because we expect deliveries here. And the idea
Got
of
it.
this is to come in here for deliveries and stage and then exit out, because the driveway to the west is two-way. So that's the purpose of that extra curb cut.
Thank you, Len.
Yeah, I
That was one of
still
the
don't,
questions.
so you're saying a truck coming from the east would use that eastern driveway? Can you not do the curb cuts so that you could accommodate a westbound truck within the single cut?
you could, it's one of those things again, are you allowed to turn in left over double yellow to access the property? But be that as it may.
No, but that's not what I'm asking you. I'm asking you, you have the, I'm going to say it again, you have the easternmost driveway.
Yep.
That's going to be used by a westbound truck. Is that correct?
No. What we
Okay.
would like that, the purpose of that is that, let's call it a drop-off area for temporary staging. So it's not parked on the US 1 to run in and drop off a delivery. It might
Okay,
be-
but the truck that oh, and so it's not parked in your parking lot.
Right, because if you bring in a panel truck into the parking lot, you have some obstacles that will just cause him to back up into the street. If
Which
you
is
think
what
about
the,
it this
okay.
way,
All right.
Well,
FedEx
isn't it-
delivery, UPS drives in, stops, stages, runs in, drops off, and then circles out on the westerly end, and then can go left or right.
It would seem to me, now it's intriguing to me too, with the the person chair.
Okay, no,
Person
it's
the person in the chair said.
the
and
best
that- but it-
title. The best title so far is Mrs. Chairman.
Oh,
Go
you told
ahead,
me you
Mr.
like that.
Test. Yeah, I
No,
like
In
that.
actuality, we all know the road there, it's actually double wide. But I would think a truck, a typical FedEx truck, UPS truck, that's going east would be able to make that turn in and go back out, because it's not like they're coming down, they're coming right against the property. That's the way the westbound traffic is. Maybe,
Yeah.
Len, you want to comment on that, but I don't think there'll be any problem with that UPS truck making the turn right in.
Oh, yeah, that's
It's
not a
across the
problem.
double line, as Len pointed out, and technically legal because it's a property location, but I think it works either way. I think that was quite smart on the part of the architects to come up with that.
Well,
That's-
It was above my pay grade.
yeah, I mean, we would dearly love not to have that second curb cut.
Well, it's a functionality, and it's better than, as you know, what exists today, as you pointed out rightfully so yesterday,
Yeah.
that we're eliminating that backup, and this is another example
Oh,
of
yeah.
creative, site planning to eliminate a truck deciding to stop on the street, but
Yep.
rather sees the ability to move in. So I think it's a win-win for everybody there.
Yeah.
So
Okay, oh, I just lost the landscape plan, sorry. Okay, every now and then. All right, so, does anybody else have comments on this driveway? I mean, I wish we didn't have to do it like this. Okay, I guess not. Okay,
I
so,
think the question was why, Mr. D'Angelo's explanation is plausible, but, it's based on a delivery, but why was the
Nick,
original?
Nick, you're very hard to hear right now. Something's muffling you.
Why was the original
Perfect.
approved plan from a year ago abandoned? I understand that we know now, but it was just to accommodate a drop off and pickup of a FedEx truck. But I'm thinking to myself, yeah, the single curb cut was working, and now we're just doing this drop off and pickup. But it seems that whole, if that's the case, maybe that driveway could be made a little bit narrower.
our clients did not like the plan. Ultimately, they talked about it, they consulted more with the architects. This is just, so you know, it's going to be substantially a user building by our client.
What does that mean?
The owner of the property is going to be occupying the building. Sorry.
Okay,
It's not,
thanks.
it's not.
owner occupied. Okay, got it. I didn't know it was
Thank you,
called
thank you,
user.
thank-
Okay,
Thank you, owner occupied, yeah. And so in terms of our client's needs, as she saw them,
Okay.
she's much more comfortable with this plan. We went through a lot of iterations, the architects are on, they can tell you. They finally settled on this for a number of reasons
Okay.
related to how the functionality of the building, given the nature of her business.
okay. And Mr. Zambell is there, right?
I believe so.
Mr. Zambell?
Mute.
Trying to unmute.
Okay,
Yes.
There he is.
okay. Hello, Mr. Zambell.
Hi, how are
So, one more question on the driveway and then I'm going to stop.
Yeah.
So where you've got the Greenwich parking spaces, I can't ask, this is a Stanford question, but the building actually needs I think it's 16 total parking spaces.
I believe the building with the program that's there could possibly be 15.
Okay, but it's close to what you have, because I was still kind of wondering, could we use the side of the lot's parking for your truck turnaround? And then you wouldn't need to pavement, then you could recover that huge amount of asphalt that's in the front of the building.
Right. The way this works with the fact that Post Road is sloping down across the site, and we have the grades where we're trying to get the parking to meet the Greenwich slope requirements and the code slope requirements.
Yeah.
It's everything is there's very little room in terms of making this work differently without losing parking spaces.
I was going to make you lose those parking spaces on the side, but I think Pat, can you zoom just a little bit? Or I can zoom here. I'm sorry.
Adam,
It's also, I just realized.
The southern or not the southern?
No, what I was looking at was, is there any way that spaces 6, 7, and 8 could be used for a truck turnaround? But that's space 7 is your handicap parking. So, and that's your access to the building. Okay. So
and just to support Mr. DeAndrea's point, when you have this 23-foot aisle width or whatever it is between spaces, you have to assume that all these cars are in here, and that makes it nearly impossible for a truck of 35 feet or whatever to
Yep. No, I get it. So you guys heard us yesterday. The key thing that we're seeing at least I'm seeing with this site, is when we did the POCD Greenscape plan, we did not foresee that we would have an ability to do something in the Eastern Gateway to Greenwich. And we're really excited about suddenly having an opportunity for the Eastern Gateway. And we hadn't received your landscape plan, Mr. Zambell. So we were struggling to figure out how you would do that. I would like you to review your planting plan with ARC as well as the lighting, particularly because Mr. Hine and Mr. Conti were the lead people on the POCD Greenscape plan. And so
I may make myself clear. I apologize before, but yes, indeed, that is what's before the ARC in our application. Both landscaping and lighting. I'm sorry if I didn't make that clear.
No, I did. I got it, and I'm just re-emphasizing. We will not. I don't want us to address. If nobody minds my saying this, I would rather we not address it, because the brains behind the creativity, the two landscape designers on ARC are the ones who did our POCD Greenscape plan, and I would like them to review this for consistency with it. That's the goal. So, we can look at it and say, oh, this looks nice, and you have the grasses and stuff, and I have no ability to judge that. So I would just like you to that definitely. This is a huge opportunity to make that entry into Greenwich just sing again, and we were not anticipating this, and we're excited about it.
I think Mrs. Alban, the real critical issue of that is actually what's planted in that small island right there at the curb line.
Yep.
That's the thing that's actually, that's the make or break. It's going to be subject to everything being run over, salt, sand, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, I got that. It's got to, I know.
And as soon as that's planted, maybe it survives for 1 year and never gets planted again.
I know, but they're making up because they've got the area on the southern facade of the building as well as on the westernmost, on the on the southwesternmost part of the property is planted, and that's going to make a real difference. So it may be that island just doesn't get much treatment. We're going to let ARC work on that. I think is the best path for us. Katie, Pat, would it be, and I see Marisa's here too, if we were to move this forward, could we make it subject to the landscaping alterations and lighting comments given by ARC so that they don't have to come back to us?
I think we can. The only thing would be if the discussion with the ARC is not satisfactory to the applicant, do they want to come back as an appeal, or would they like that to be settled all at once when we make the decision?
Mr. Tessie, are you willing to take your chances with ARC?
Yeah, I look, we're dealing with a relatively small area here. It's going to be about the plantings.
Yeah.
And I know our landscape architects. They're part of, I believe, Eric's team. Eric, I don't have any problem with that. I'm confident they'll work it out.
Yeah, all you have to do is say yes.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so we'll just leave it if everybody's okay with that. We'll leave it. We'll let ARC, with the express condition that ARC fool with it. And they give, and what they suggest, is what happens. Is everybody good with that?
Yeah.
Because I really want to respect the greenscape process. Katie? Okay, you're muted, but I saw you. Okie doke.
Public comment, Madam Chair?
Yes, I'm going there.
Thank you.
So do I have any member of the public who wishes to speak on this application? Please raise your virtual hand if you raise your hand, or just hit *9 on your phone. Oh, the phone person's gone. So anybody, Mr. Marsha, nope, isn't going to speak. Okay, nobody else wants to speak on this application? Okay, any further comments from the commission?
No.
Does anybody have any objection to closing the application at this time?
No.
No.
Okie dokie. With that, Mr. McRae, if you would give us a motion.
1549 East Putnam Avenue, application PLPZ 2020-225. Final site plan in the GB zone. Applicant is seeking final site plan approval to make improvements to driveway, parking, landscaping, and drainage structures on 6,031 square feet, a portion of land in Greenwich. The commission finds that the site straddles the municipal boundary between the city of Stamford and the town of Greenwich. Engineering issued comments dated 10/20/20, indicating resubmittal prior to the issuance of a zoning permit. Wetlands, the applicant received a permits need questionnaire sign off from wetlands on 9/3/20. Conservation issue comments dated 10/15/20 with concerns about stormwater collection and proposed landscaping. Zoning issue comments dated 10/14/20 stating the site plan meets the requirements of the BZR. Sewer department issued comments on 10/19/20 indicating there are no items that need to be addressed during P&Z phase. Therefore, motion to approve the site plan noting the following. Prior to the issuance of a zoning permit, the applicant shall appear before the ARC for review and comment on site lighting, landscaping, and signage. The applicant shall work with staff and conservation to address any outstanding concerns. Prior to the issuance of a zoning permit, applicant shall secure the appropriate Connecticut DOT highway approvals. And the applicant to address any outstanding staff or interdepartmental issues.
I would only add that in the ARC review, that applicant shall incorporate ARC recommendations consistent with the goals and with the guiding principles of the POCD Greenscape Plan. Or
Okay.
shall work to incorporate. Staff can word it in a way that's completely legit. But
Sounds legit to me.
yeah, you know where we're going. And we've got the guiding principles. They're on the website, and that is what goes in to it.
Do you want to state specifically that it actually their review is limited to portions of the site
No,
better in
I'm
Greenwich?
sure, Marisa is going to make it very
No, I
clear.
understand that for sure, but I want to make sure
Yeah.
that they understand it.
No, they'll get it. You know,
So
Yeah, I
mutually,
know. Yeah, I know.
never fear. They'll know. Sometimes they get
Actually, I
a little
just want
extra.
to, I want to make sure.
Sometimes they get a little extra coaching from someone.
Right. I want to make sure actually to understand actually the signage being indicated in that
Oh,
statement
thank you for
is
remembering.
the freestanding sign that's on the plans. And I think actually just to make sure that that's understood, that actually that sign probably, or whatever's proposed there, goes to the CEO for his sign off as per the
Or
application process.
Or ARC for the signs.
Well, it's ZEO first to make sure the signs actually conforms,
Consistent.
and then it goes to ARC.
Okie dokie.
But they're limited to looking at that freestanding sign.
So now that we've messed with your motion, do I have a second?
I can,
Mr. Levy seconds again. You're hitting them all, Mr. Levy. And if I could take a vote, Mr. Hardman,
A.
Mr. Levy,
aye.
Mr. McRae,
Aye.
Mr. Lowe,
Yes.
and Albin is aye. And so with that, thank you very much, Mr. Tessie. And we go to the public hearing.
Thank you.
And we our one and only item on the public hearing is from the planning and zoning staff, and is for a text amendment regarding a planting of coastal buffer. And there we go. Mr. Yeski, yes.
Want to clarify who's sitting here? Am I still sitting for Levy, and who's sitting for Fox?
Oh, why, thank you.
You're welcome. My role tonight.
Yes, thank you, because I wasn't even focused on that. Mr. Levy, do you have any objection if Mr. Yeski remains seated?
No.
Great. So there you go, Mr. Yeski. Thank you for reminding me.
And how about Mr. Fox's?
I believe I'm sitting for him.
Lowe is seated for Fox. We got that one. Wait, Katie, how did we lose you? Okay, Katie's back.
Sorry, guys, I don't know how I just disappeared like that. Sorry.
Oh yeah, I did that once the other day. I just pushed the button. And we have a guest tonight. This is becoming a frequent practice. We have a guest tonight. We will, Ms. Sesto is also going to give us some comments on this as we hear it. Katie, would you like to start, and then
Sure. Yeah, so obviously you remember we've heard this once before, and at that time we decided to leave it open to get some discussion from the Conservation Commission, and they effectively wrote the language that is before you with a couple of minor changes. And per the discussion yesterday, as you know, there's one issue I think with some of the language stating that the commission can modify what's put before you. The issue is that there's no qualifier associated with that power. And I think that is an issue. So, and we've discovered that through various court cases throughout the state on other issues, nothing to do with coastal buffers, but having to do with the issue of your ability to modify things or waive things, what have you. So, so that would be the only thing that I think that should be added to the language. Other than that, I think it meets the intent of what we initially wanted to accomplish. As you noted, Pat Sesto is here, the Director of Environmental Affairs. And I don't know if there's anything, Pat, that you wanted to add.
Well, Conservation First is just thrilled that the commission is proactively taking this up. That is just wonderful. The intent behind what the commission was suggesting was to reorder some of the wording in the first pass to put the burden on the applicant to put forward a buffer, and for the applicant to justify, provide the reasoning behind what they are proposing. I get the point with regards to putting structure around when the commission should waive and to what extent, and I applaud the effort to bring qualifying words associated with that. So yay. And I did want to also be sure to note in our discussions with the Conservation Commission, things that they did take into account in what was being put forward is not all wetlands are great wetlands. We do, as the discussion earlier this evening brought to bear, sea level rise is something that we need to consider as we move forward and what the standards should be and safeguards with that. So that sort of thinking is why we didn't go forward with a sort of an absolute minimum buffer size or a maximum, because there is such variability, and the commission remains committed to help planning and zoning understand the ecological variabilities with each application for your consideration, and have enjoyed the respect that you all have given those comments and look forward to maintaining that positive relationship.
So you and Katie will work on how you can review. Really what we found is that when we say the commission may waive, or the commission may modify, or the commission may grant, it just opens the door, and it needs parameters, and it needs to say, where there is insufficient lots, something that says these are the ways you think about what you're going to require for coastal.
Yeah, one of the things that we just discussed yesterday, as you pointed out, with respect to the lot sizes, that ideally you'd want to have 100-foot buffer, and clearly with some of these lots not even being 100 feet in depth, that's impractical. So that's, as you just said, is one scenario. Another scenario might be where you have a seawall, and I think you could just say, keeping with the purpose of 6-139, which is the coastal area management. So I mean, there's some things that I think we can massage. Both Pat and myself, we can massage and come back to you, understanding of where you're coming from.
I thought this would be like a 10-minute thing that we do in one meeting. It's funny what you think it's going to be simple. The language we started with was so simple, and it just is, it's fine. I think that's great if you guys work on it, though.
Just one question for Pat, though. If there is a seawall, I mean, is that a scenario where you would think that a buffer might not be appropriate, or one still would be appropriate? I'm just kind of curious, since we're in a discussion, might as well figure it out.
Yep. So seawall certainly is one of those factors that generally negatively impacts the tidal wetland that's associated, or in some cases where water strictly abuts. But to the extent water is still draining towards the sound or towards that wetland, a buffer will do well to filter out the pollutants. It will stabilize that land behind the seawall. Depending on its height, it might be subject to erosion when storms and surge come up above the wall. So I wouldn't say that a wall in and of itself takes things off the table, but it certainly is an indicator of an impacted system.
Well, that's really interesting, because we had somebody tell us, we don't need any planting because we have a wall.
Yeah.
So, Katie, I think we need to put some language in for that, so that another commission 10 years from now who doesn't know this discussion it's the parameters, because we did have very recently somebody said, well, there's a seawall, you don't need to do anything.
Yeah, and I think that's why I wanted to just kind of discuss it a bit, because I think just logically, just as you just said, Pat, I don't think it really makes sense to just have that be a out and out qualifier or disqualifier.
Okay. And just so where the lots have limitations that such as because you don't want to take away people's ability to use their property.
I mean, even if you had a scenario where, let's say there, in Bellhaven as an example, where you had some sort of bluff or something along those lines, even then I think a coastal buffer is a good thing, because water will run off those lots, and who knows what they've got on their grass, and at least there'll be some sort of filter before the water goes down the hill to the water. So, I mean, I think it's not coming in necessarily, but it's also cleaning water going out.
Yep. And certainly the habitat that a predominantly native buffer versus a lawn, that has value too.
Yeah.
Pat, is that it? Does anybody else want to add anything to the regulation discussion?
No, I think it's actually trying to understand. So with a wall, if the wall is at, say, mean high water, we're not talking about anything on the seaward side. It's actually everything be inside the wall.
Not necessarily.
And if it's inside the wall, yeah, I guess lawn, we get rid of the lawn and put something actually that's a little bit more appropriate. If it's actually on the other side of a wall,
You might
and
still
it's-
need it.
and more subject to tidal action, that kind of stuff, would that actually still be something that we should be looking at?
Hold on a second. Mr. Hardman, would you like to comment on planting on the other side of the wall? And what happens tidally? From your experience?
Well, I do think it provides, it does stop erosion. Certainly replaces some of the invasive species if it's done properly, but
And coastal
it's certainly-
habitat.
Yes, well, I think that goes without saying that coastal habitat is improved because indigenous species, Spartina particularly, are I think friendlier than the invasive species.
So one of the things is, Mr. McRae, when the tide goes out and you get a very low level, it makes a whole lot of sense to have planting, if you can do it, that is coastal habitat supportive, correct? Ms. Sesto?
Oh, I understand that.
I mean,
for
I'm
sure.
way out of my league here, but
Right.
So
My concern, what I'm kind of getting at is that
You said that seawall is
you got muffled again. I don't know what happens there.
you say that seawall is actually, is quite deep into the property, and actually mean high water is farther out. Should we be significantly concerned about what happens between the wall and say mean high water? If it's actually in its natural habitat already, should we just let it go and let Mother Nature take over in that area?
So are you talking about, between the wall and then seaward,
Yeah.
that area is sort of persistently inundated, or are you talking about exposed mudflats?
It's like exposed mudflats, or say at low tide it's mudflat. High tide, yeah, maybe there's some water there, but it's more marshy, that kind of thing. Where should we really be looking to start to make an impact on things like that?
So the responsibility of the commission is to protect the tidal resources, the tidal wetlands, the open water. So if you have a degraded tidal wetland area, let's say it's you've got an area that's kind of small, it's Phragmites, pushing the Spartina out. It is more valuable to have a restoration of that tidal wetland than to have a buffer. The buffer is to protect the resource, but if the resource is failing, get a better, work to improve the resource first.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. Because I think actually we're always talking about where's the wall and what happens on both sides of the wall. I'm thinking actually in another instance where there's actually no wall, and I've got lawn down to a certain point.
Yeah.
And I've got, so where is the buffer? What signifies or what designates this, where the buffer starts, where it ends, those kind of things. Because I think in a previous application, 18 months, 24 months ago, we had been talking about actually a situation where we had lawn down to a tidal marshland. And where was the buffer going to be? Is it high water? Is it a specific elevation? So on and so forth. And I think that's one thing that we have kind of added into the mix for our reference when we're looking at these things in the future. Where is that line? What should we consider the line? Should we be pushing the line towards the water or bringing it back towards the land? So
So in that
but I think it's making
situation,
sense.
lawn has gone where tidal wetland should be or is capable of being supported. Getting rid of the lawn and restoring the tidal wetland should be the priority. If you've got lawn up to the edge of the functional tidal area, and it's in reasonable shape, then the buffer becomes the next priority to protect that. So in the ideal world, we would restore the wetland and then add a buffer to it. But, there's a reasonable balance of how much you can impose upon somebody. This is quite like the inland wetlands jurisdiction. Every site, every wetland, every project, it has its unique set of functions and necessities that come together. So that's the difficulty of saying we will have a buffer, because, you know, in all cases, you're not going to have the same buffer. Buffer isn't warranted. Maybe a good one already exists. Maybe the wetland doesn't warrant it. Maybe the site's too small. There's so many competing elements that is, as Madam Chair said, this is about the Planning and Zoning Commission moving forward with this expectation and holding people to it, and things will come. But yeah, there's no one size fits all.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Is everybody good then with where we're going to go with this?
Yes.
Okay, so while we have you, Pat, when we were discussing this yesterday, one of the requests that came up from the commission, if we could just have an hour session explaining CAM and the issues with CAM. And for example, we got into that trade-off discussion of Alexandra's comments versus race today. We'd like to have a bit of a learning exercise that gives both points of view, that gives us where an engineering firm working for a client would come out and some of the concerns, so that we can better learn how to balance these issues on a site plan. Does that phrase accurately the request?
Yeah, because I think when
we were talking, and actually Dave, came in on this as well, as the discussion of getting it from both sides, is from conservation, from your department, your thoughts, and then as an example, getting information from the engineers at Race to understand where they're coming from. Because I'm sure you heard this evening's discussion about the drainage structures. They're going to fill up, but the object of the drainage structures is to drain, which is what they will do at the end.
So we run into the same issues with inland wetland, that sometimes the drainage manual forces consumption of land that takes away from some other goal. And then conservation or wetlands has, on occasion, said, we're going to pass on the requirement of the drainage manual and prioritize this other piece, because of the two, the other piece was more valuable to our goals than the drainage manual requirement.
So Dave, does that encompass what you had raised?
Yes.
I'm thinking as we discuss this, that it might be very useful for some other land use agencies to hear this, if we had some little short thing. I mean, because so nice with Zoom, we could do this quick, but ZBA might find this useful when they get a variance request that affects something that could have, I don't know if yes or no, but might be useful to ARC. I don't know. We could see it once we've got it, see if we get some traction. If any, leave it open to all the land use agencies.
Katie, Katie, can I ask Ms. Sesto about the application we saw tonight? I have a kind of a question.
I mean,
not without the applicant here. I think
one
it would
that
be.
No. Decided
we decide?
already? Which
Yeah, we decided.
Yeah, so it's closed and done. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Pat, did you hear what we were talking about with that
the pool and the
yeah. Okay. If understanding that site and the engineers didn't have to follow the drainage manual, and everything basically as Deepwood just basically went right back into the sound, is that acceptable practice for the drainage? Or I would assume you do need some kind of water quality before it all wound up in the sound, but would that be a better condition, is just to let it go right back into the sound?
So in that particular circumstance, the drainage for the roof and driveway were staying to the front of the lot.
Right.
And then we were just talking about the patio and the pool and the rain garden to receive that runoff from the back. So the inundation questions aside, in that circumstance, it would be a toss-up, because your DPW takes the stance that the pool is considered impervious area, which
yes,
I can see how people are going, what? It has storage of its own. So I would look at a pool as an impervious surface differently than compensating for roof runoff, let's say. To me, those are two different types of runoff to worry about. And likewise for the patio, could they have had open joints? And if they could have had open joints, and then we're talking about a pool, and then that would have alleviated some constraint of that rain garden, I could have been okay with that. But what's the trade-off? Are we getting rid of the rain garden so we can have a better protective buffer to the sound? Or are we getting rid of the rain garden so we can have more lawn? So
Right.
you know,
I was
what's the
thinking
value
of
of
that, you know,
trade-off?
as a test case, something that's familiar. If I took all of the rainwater that was coming off the roof and the surfaces and actually put it into a water quality system, a better rain garden that actually, you know, could seep right into the sound. Overall, without a better ecological solution to the rainwater management, as opposed to collecting it up in Cultex all over the place and letting it drain. Because it seemed to me, looking for the balance, yeah, I'm collecting rainwater from all over the place. I'm recharging it back to the ground according to our drainage manual.
Yeah, which is good.
But would Mother Nature say, yeah, just give me the water, I'll take care of it, just make sure it's clean? You know, it's going to wind up in the sound eventually.
Yeah, but you do want to make sure. So if it's a steep yard, then you're going to want to reinforce its opportunity to infiltrate. Do you have a buffer down at the end of that lawn before it hits and overtops that steep wall? So it depends. It depends on what the other factors are.
Okay.
Sorry.
But I just want to ask a question about the buffer. But if you did create a larger buffer, how much does that mitigate? How much might that mitigate the water quality?
So it's going to depend on the size of the buffer and the planted material and the area draining to it.
Is there a calculus for that?
Yeah, I think that there probably is. And I think you would end up with something wider than most of our coastal or small coastal lots can deal with. I mean, it's not going to be 15 feet. It's going to be wider than 15 feet. And then, you know, the more area that's feeding it, the bigger, or the steeper the slope, the bigger. But things having like sedges or rushes that have deeper root systems and have physical structure through the winter is better than having, say, tiger lilies or something else that just goes dormant and has no physical structure through the winter. So there are variables. But yes, you could have a buffer to offset some of the needs of, say, a rain garden. But I put
it sounds like a good idea
first. And if we're running into conflicts with the drainage manual and another goal, then we weigh the opportunities and the priorities.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks for making the time for us, Pat. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for making the time for this.
Yeah, this. Oh, Pat, why don't you just jump on our Zoom?
I love it. Yeah,
that's great.
Great.
That's great. Thank you so much. So stay tuned, everybody. We'll do more.
Alrighty. Good night.
Thanks.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
I have, if the chairperson could, I have one more item to add to our agenda. We interviewed Kate LaBalbo on Monday. Would the commission like to nominate her for another term on ARC?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Who would like to do that?
I'll do it.
Okie dokie.
I nominate Kate LaBalbo, current member of ARC and secretary of ARC, for another term. 2 years, is it? Right?
Maurice,
2 or 3?
Marisa left.
I think it's 3. I think
it's 3. I think they are 3, and we always forget.
For an additional,
just say it's another term.
For an additional term.
Yeah, because we always forget.
For an additional term, commencing the date of this meeting.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Oh, wait. That was Lowe jumped it. It Lowe's. So
Jumped
Peter
it?
Lowe
I just
has second.
responded.
Yeah, no. In other words, you got there first. So Peter Lowe is a second. Should we have everybody vote, or just the regulars?
Just the regulars.
Okie dokie. So Mr. Hardman.
Aye.
Mr. Levy.
Aye.
Mr. Lowe, Mr.
Aye.
Mr. McRae,
Sure.
and Albin is also an aye. The next item I wanted to raise with you quickly is, Peter Lowe asked me this today. Katie, you had originally said we were meeting to do a public workshop on 6/110 on the morning of the 27th, but now the first selectman, I think it was the 27th, right, Peter?
That was
Yes.
a Tuesday, right?
Yeah,
Tuesday the
and now the
27th.
first selectmen are doing the public input session for the outdoor dining on that same date. Can we, I think at this point, we should reschedule the 6/110 for later in the week if we don't have it.
The Thursday, the 29th?
Sure.
Well, we advertised first.
Let me just look. Have you already told people or do we have the
No.
flex? What?
No, the 29th.
Okay, great. Yeah, Thursday, the 29th,
10 o'clock.
in Thursday, the 29th, yeah, in the morning, that would be great.
Because we had it at 10 o'clock.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, good.
Okay, the last item is I just want to talk about process while we have everybody. It'll take 2 seconds. So I would like to add another priority site to the Greenscape plan. I believe that the right process would be to go to the Greenscape, the original Greenscape task force, get their endorsement, and then come back to the commission. Is that okay, Katie? Right now, I'll tell you what it is. I had emailed you. You may not have seen it yet. Mill Pond is not one of the top 6 sites, but I'd like to add it into our list so that we have 7 sites for implementation.
Yeah.
So it's to amend the 6-site prioritization that the Greenscape Task Force did and add a site, but I think they need to sign off and then we do a revision at the commission level so that it's, set in concrete what the 7 sites are.
Okay, when you talk about adding the site, is there an idea behind that, a design behind that, or just
Yeah.
implementing what was done already?
No, I think right now, and this is what we would need to discuss with the Greenscape right now, with the original Greenscape, with you, Nick, with your guys, is right now it is only to clear cut around the bridge and to clean it up a little bit. There is some interest in us doing more in the park itself so that the view as you go down the post road has a little more texture in it so that front part of the park, because that's part of your drive-by on the post road. And we could review that with Greenscape and see what they say.
Okay, because I thought we
Coming
had
from
done
the
that.
west or the east?
What does it
From the
matter? Well,
west.
it depends how much you can turn your neck coming
Yeah,
from the east.
actually, it's when we had looked at it actually, Peter, the concern was as you enter Koskov from the west, the park as it's grown obscures the pond. As you
So to
pass
make
by,
it, yeah.
as you pass by Starbucks, some of their property is actually overgrown. It obscures the pond. And there's a very tiny sliver of land that's actually overgrown over the course of time that obscures the pond. And the thought was, how do we thin all of that out so there's a better view of the quote water as you pass from west to east, during that drive time.
So
I think what we had talked about actually, definitely the area, the sliver of land could be thinned out because actually it's I believe it's town owned. You'd have to go back to whoever owns the land under Starbucks because a portion of that is theirs. And then a good portion of the park is actually just parkland, but out of our purview at the time. It really didn't have any kind of frontage or other than just a little area on the post road itself.
So, and I think the overall thought was
great idea. Low hanging fruit, we can get to it, just cuts down some of the trees. And so we get a better view of the water. There was in the plan, I think actually even trying it sometime to add in like a little viewing platform or something there on a little sliver of land. So if you got a coffee, you could walk over and actually sit on a little dock or something to watch the water.
Katie, the real question to you is, want to do a good process as we work with Greenscape. I don't want it to get like, oh, that's the revision I want it to be documented in a solid process. Once again, and if all of us are gone in 10 years, somebody can pick up everything we did and know, well, these are the 7 implementations they had. They did 3 of them the first 2 years, et cetera. And it's all always square and laid out.
Well, you guys did adopt, or take action public. First of all, you had public, input, and then you not adopted, even the right word, but you acknowledged that this is what you wanted with that, with the.
We would need to do that again, right?
You'd probably want to, yeah, exactly. You'd want to change that.
Okay, good.
Having said that, I mean, I think, at some point, which I guess will be in about a year, because those were supposed to be the low hanging fruits, right, Nick? And so that was supposed to be, like, within the year. So you've got to let the document just move on its own. I don't think it needs to keep coming back every 2 seconds kind of thing, but I do understand what you're saying, that it's,
I think the other reason I'm saying it at the moment,
and I think we can, you can even do, I don't think it needs to be even at the zoning meeting. It could be at a, published planning meeting, and it's probably better to do it at that kind of thing than.
And I think the only reason I want to do it this formally right now, in addition, is because we're creating that implementation task force that's taking it over. So we're going to have a different group of people who are tasked then with, here's what you're going to do, come back to us when you're done.
Right.
And so we would not mess with it. We would say, come back to us. But it's just that, honestly, it was a discussion with Fred where he asked, and Mary Hull as well, that they were interested in adding this. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I wasn't like.
I have a question about the implementation. They're going to take the drawing sets and the guiding principles and implement it.
Yes.
What happens if they come back and say, well, we started to get into this, but we want to change the whole thing? What happens then?
Not going to happen, because what we're making sure, I've had a lot of discussion with John Conti on this. And I said to him, it's the vision is what was developed by the task force. And if we were to change landscape designer, it would have to be someone who continues to implement what was planned by the task force and is not mutable. And at first we were going to find a different landscape designer to be on the implementation group. And I think where we're evolving is that Conti's going to stay and Conti's going to be the guardian.
Okay.
Because it's exactly what I was concerned about. Because to be honest, we had a garden group that was interested in helping. And the first thing they wanted to do was to have all different trees than what we had envisioned. And we said, no, this is a set in stone set of concepts. So,
well, I mean, the plan of conservation and development is the concept, and then the Greenscape is the plan to actually do so. You see what I mean?
Absolutely.
Implementation.
Is the implementation. Yeah. So we have to make sure, that it moves forward. There's a process, because we've really never done anything quite like this. And so I'm finding a way of creating a process, and that's why I'm asking for input, because I just want to make sure I'm not way off base. I just want to make sure that we set in motion something that seems reasonable, because we've never actually had, that I can think of, an implementation task force for the POCD, that except for Katie's department heads.
Yeah.
Well, see, that's the whole thing. It's the department heads, because they're the people who get it done. We're the makers and doers and makers. I was just concerned that, as with the last one, they got into some committees from the selectman's office, and things kind of but got a lot done. But I want to make sure that actually, here's our plan, go get it done. And then people kind of get out of their lanes a little bit more. I think actually the biggest thing for us is actually to make sure that we reference it when we see things. I think there's a couple of things on those drawings that, like, for example, if we were in the task force, actually went another, 100 feet into Stamford, we would have had a plan for that curb cut that we saw tonight. So the next time we see something, what's on the plan that the landscape committee recommended. So we can do that. I think it's actually the drawings are here. Everybody's got them, so we just look at it as things pop up.
So, but the problem is that, what we're actually doing now is tasks that get a plan done. And that's what's new territory for us.
Yeah.
Because even in the last POCD where we had plan implementation committees, they produce studies and documents and more recommendations, deeper
Exactly. Yeah.
recommendations. And here we're actually putting bulbs in the ground. It's a whole different territory. And that's why I'm trying to feel my way, because I don't want to do something that's kooky.
Territory for the entire, plan. That was the entire point when we started discussing this 2 years ago, that there was going to be a different direction.
Yeah. And we got to learn how to do it in a good way. I mean, I'm happy with it, but I want to do it right. And I try to figure out how that is. Awesome. Okay, you guys, I don't have anything else. Does anybody want to throw anything in, or can we go home and?
Yeah, it's the bulb planting is when again?
November 4th.
4th of November at 10 a.m. But some inside information is that Parks and Rec is going to do a whole bunch of the bulbs before that. The
Great.
volunteers are beginning work on the 4th of
I
November.
got another question. Any idea when the chainsaws come out? Because I'd love to be there when they cut trees down. That's a little bit
No.
more my style.
No, what we really want to do is get the invasive species off of the tree trunks. That's everybody's desperate for that.
I saw
Okay.
them out there the other day, actually, Nick. You might have missed some of it.
Okay. Anybody else have anything for the commission? The Greenwich Free Press, by the way, wrote up our meeting last night. So you'll take a look. It's got pictures of everyone.
Oh, please, you didn't send it around.
Yeah, no, but I saw somebody emailed and said, "Oh, your meeting was written up," but I didn't have a chance to send. I saw it, but I haven't had a chance. Multitasking.
Katie, quick question. That Board of Selectmen thing, is that actually public input on dining, parking, so on and so forth, extensions, et cetera, for Greenwich Avenue?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, okay.
That's why. And by the way, you guys, if I can attend, it'll be very piecemeal and from a phone. So anybody who can listen in and can come back and give us guidance on what we need to do afterward would be much appreciated.
Okay.
It's at 9 a.m. next Tuesday morning, and anybody who can listen in and then has thoughts on what we need to do in terms of regulations and moving forward and what happens if we do or do not get an executive order would be great. Okay. All right, everybody. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being here. And so endeth P&Z, 7:08 p.m.
Goodbye.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.